This week, I want to talk about mid-year grades and what they mean for seniors in the midst of their admission process. I've been getting questions from a few of my anxious seniors who are finishing their first semester and trying to understand what exactly these mid-year grades are going to mean in the admissions process for them. So, first of all, just as context, what happens with schools who have either deferred students, so students applied early and their result was that they are deferred until regular decision, meaning they're still waiting to hear at this point, and then also anybody who applied regular decision, meaning usually a January or even February 1st deadline, those colleges where students have been deferred and where they applied regular decision are often asking students to submit their mid-year grades. So first semester grades through the end, well, obviously first semester through the end of first semester, but they are designed to give a checkpoint for the colleges to add a little more context to the student's academic record. If it's from a deferral, it could be a really big help just to show that you are still continuing to be a strong student throughout senior year. Maybe your schedule is even a little bit more rigorous as a senior and you're able to demonstrate that you're keeping up with that. If you just applied regular decision, it is just kind of expected that timing works out, that the first semester grades are going to be part of your academic record. So they just naturally get sent to most colleges. However, not all schools require them. Not all schools require them to be sent officially from your high school. So it's really important that students understand how that information is supposed to be transmitted and whether or not it's even required by the colleges, again, where they've been deferred or where they are applying regular decision. It's also really important for students to understand if their school, meaning their high school, is going to send grades for them, that they understand how that process works, because every school handles it a little bit differently in terms of how that is communicated and what schools are requiring it, and those kinds of things have to be shared with the school-based counselor. So it's really important for students to understand how that's going to work. So that's the basics of it. If you've been deferred, if you applied regular decision, oftentimes mid-year grades are required to move on in the process. The bigger question really is, how bad can my grades be and not have the college either not admit me, well, essentially not admit me at this point of the game. So I get this question all the time. Students are panicking that maybe semester exams didn't go well, maybe just not gaining traction yet in an AP or difficult IB class, so they're worried that first semester isn't necessarily truly reflective of their ability, which I completely understand. That does happen. It's not always the first semester that is the strongest, because students get better throughout the whole course of the year and might end still with a very strong grade, but the first semester might just trip them up a little bit. So the bottom line in all of this, as you know if you follow along, is that this depends a lot on the college and how much weight they're actually putting into first semester grades. Again, some of them aren't even asking for them, so they're not worried. They just want to know what classes a student has been taking as a senior. So here's an example. I have a student, typically a strong A, maybe a few B's student, who looks like will have a C at the first semester in a particularly difficult AP course. It is not the end of the world. That one class, that one semester grade is not going to be the thing that keeps this student from being admitted. Sure, it might be something that the colleges think about a little bit harder, but it is not necessarily damaging to the overall impact. It is really just, again, this is meant to be a checkpoint and making sure that students aren't completely bottoming out. So it would be different if we're talking about an A and B student who suddenly has all C's or even lower, and something is clearly off course in terms of that. So in this case, it is just a blip. It is something that is, has happened. It is not necessarily where the student will end up at the end of the entire year in this course. Students can also, in many cases, provide context. If something has been particularly difficult in a class, or maybe there is a reason that they were either out sick or something is delayed in terms of a project or a grade or something like that. If there is context, they can share that. They can either email their admissions rep directly, or oftentimes there's an opportunity to upload a statement in a student's portal while they are also uploading mid-year grades. So context is always really, really important in this process, and it certainly applies in this case as well if there is a blip or something that needs to be discussed. Also, though, I caution students not to draw a lot of attention if it is really just a small blip. So in the case of the student sample I was just talking about, I am not advising context in this case. It is simply a matter of the other grades are literally all A's, and this one class is a very high C based on the mid-year exam. So it is not necessarily showing that the whole senior year is off track. So we don't need to add a lot of information to that. Let's just let it be and send the grades as they are and hope for the best. Because again, that semester grade, that one data point is not going to be the thing that keeps a student out. Conversely, having straight A's at first semester is not going to be the thing, the one data point that gets you into a college. Just like in most of these cases, just test scores alone, just essays alone, just teacher recommendations, those individual things are not the things that tip the scale. It is the overall package. How does the student read when you take all of the information in and look at the whole picture in terms of that? So again, we want students to do their very, very best, and keep doing your best because they're going to check your grades at the final end of your senior year as well. So we don't want you to stop. So parents, if you're talking to your students, remind them that a final transcript still has to be sent and reviewed to the college in which they plan to enroll. But we just want you to keep pushing to do the very best that you can this year and show the colleges that you can handle the rigor and all of the other important things that they're looking for in this process. But again, little blips are not going to be the end of the world. If you have any questions, please send me a message, drop it in the comments. We'd love to help you.